Hey team, I am in circle 2 and I'm working on a couple of things in here. I'm working on trimming back the uh, blackberry bushes that are all that direction, and they're starting to creep into circle 2. Now I don't really mind so much, except because I like to keep circle 2 pretty wild. It's kind of a fun experiment for me. Um, but at some point the blackberry brambles start to kind of suffocate the plants that I do want here, like the sweet pea bushes, and there's just a peach tree there, the lemon balm right here, the comfrey, the pluots, and the nectaplum. At some point, the blackberries are no longer welcome, so I kind of just keep them at bay. So I'm cutting those back, but I also am trimming back some of our trees that I planted last year. So in this circle, I've got peach, a dwarf peach, 2 pluots, and a nectaplum, and it's kind of an interesting idea to take the plants that you're trying to grow and then trim them back, right? It's almost like, Miss Adrienne, why would you want to cut plants if you're trying to grow them? But in cutting them back, you prepare them for winter by giving them less to take care of. They don't have as much of their body to take care of during winter when there's not a lot of sun and there's maybe too much rain and there's not a lot of warmth, right? But they also need to be trimmed back so that they can grow bigger, which is a very weird thing. So some plants really benefit from being pruned. Now, pruning is just a word for trimming back, right? So I'm going to be trimming back the pluots and the nectaplum, and I think I'm going to set you up on my phone. You are talking to my phone, and I'm going to set you up on a tripod and show you how I do this. And in trimming it back, I can allow it to grow larger, but I can also control the shape of how it grows. So instead of the fruit tree getting really, really tall to where I can't reach the fruit on the top branches, I'm trying to train them to grow wide so that it's easier for me to pull down the fruit. All right, I have two main tools that I'm going to be using. I've got my snips, which have like a safety lock at the bottom, and I just cut like that. I've also got a knife for smaller branches or if I need to cut anything. Now, sometimes I use what kind of looks like snips on stilts. The snip part, the actual sharp part, is bigger, and these are on like long handles, so you can kind of reach higher and snip. But I think I left them all in the butterfly garden, and I'm gonna just use this. So right here are the pluots, and then just further is the nectaplum. So I pull down the branch and cut. Now when I cut, I make sure to cut at an angle. I think it creates a better callus, and it's just better for the plant in growing. I also always try to cut near a node. Now a node is where a leaf is sprouting out. So on this plant right here is a node. Here is a node. See, this branch is coming out. It's either where a leaf or a branch are coming out is a node. So let me cut back these. You can see how this is coming off of the main branch. So I like to cut at one of those because that's a point of growth. In that specific spot in the plant, it's got something called a meristem, and a meristem is the type of cells that will be creating more of this plant. So when I cut it back, it's going to create a nice little callus, which is like a brown dried covering, and it'll protect it over the winter. And then come spring, we're going to start getting sprouts, probably not up from that, but to the sides of it, which is how we're going to want to get that plant wide rather than tall. So this is the nectaplum. You can see it's got really cool red leaves up at the top. This actually in winter, spring is pretty much red. It's absolutely gorgeous. And we actually got quite a few nectar plums this year, which was divine. So I'm just gonna trim it back. I'm just gonna trim that top piece a little bit and then leave it. And then I'm gonna go back into the plua and kind of make sure that it's the shape I want it to be. Looks good. So this little guy right here is our dwarf peach, and I just love the way the leaves look. It almost looks like hair. And one of the things I actually love to do with our plants and the trees in the garden is kind of put energy into them. So by working with them, I'm putting energy into them, but I also like to kind of, you know, shake them a little, like wake up, hello, how are you? I like to talk to the plants. I like to sing to the plants. Sometimes I hug them, say good morning, and I just really try to make sure that the plants feel my loving energy towards them. So this is one that I'm not going to trim back much because it is a dwarf, but I am going to get it some fresh tops. So when I'm done with these, I think I'm just gonna leave them on the ground to act as mulch. Mulch is like what we do with the wood chips, how it kind of covers the floor, the ground, the soil, and protects it for the winter, and prevents weeds from popping up. So I think I'm almost done with this one. I'm gonna take you over to our peach tree. So over by circle 2, we're gonna walk together. I've got a peach tree, another peach tree. That was a dwarf peach. This is in theory, going to be a larger peach. And I've got another plum. And they're doing okay. They're doing okay. They're not getting a lot of water, but hopefully this winter when it rains, we'll get lots of water and they'll be a lot happier. So here they are. We've got plum, which is this one right here. And peach, which is off the screen, which is this one right here. And peach has sent up a long arm, so I'm just gonna trim that back. I'm gonna trim back anything that looks a little dead as well. So these branches, someone's obviously been eating the leaves. We're gonna trim that kind of thing back. Now, another important thing to trim back when you were working with trees and fruit trees especially, is at the bottom, you sometimes get what are called suckers. Some people also call them volunteer branches, but let's see if I can show you. But down here at the base of our tree are all these little branches. And these little branches are actually from the peach tree, and it's almost like the peach tree is trying to grow branches down there. But unfortunately, when it does that, those take a lot of energy from the tree, and instead of the tree being able to put its energy up here, it puts its energy down there, which is not great for producing fruit. So I'm going to trim those off. And again, I'm just going to do like a chop and drop, where I chop and drop and let it mulch. Now our plum over here is doing okay. Again, just to give it a little bit more of a rounded nature, I am going to trim a bit off. Not much, maybe like 4 inches. Go back in here. And it actually looks pretty good. I think we're going to go down to the fig tree down by circle 1 now. Most trees actually like to be pruned in fall, and today is the autumn equinox, so I am kind of jumping the gun a little bit, but I kind of don't know what my schedule is going to be like moving forward and how much time I'll actually have to be in the garden. So I'm doing it now. This is our fig tree. It's quite big, and you know, I kind of don't mind it. I am going to trim a little bit just to get this bottom area a little cleaner, but otherwise I'm gonna let it go crazy because why not? So I think one of the reasons why I'm okay with the fig tree growing taller than the other trees is because right where I'm standing is relatively flat, and on the other side is that paved road. So if I ever needed to pull up a ladder, I could, and I probably wouldn't fall over. So I'm gonna trim, oh my goodness. I win the day. Look at that beauty. And that's actually kind of interesting. We usually get our figs in September, and it's September, it's this 22nd today. And we barely had any figs, we maybe had 5. So this was just that kind of year where we don't get a lot of crops. And I honestly think it's because during the end of the school year last year, when we all immediately had to run into distance learning, and I ended up having very little time to take care of the garden, and mostly I was just watching my daughter, the energy, I wasn't bringing that loving energy to the garden, and it was kind of just by itself. So I think there's something so important about humans coming in to nature and taking care of it, protecting it, helping it to be its most healthy, best nature it can be, and sitting there and relating to the nature as we go through it, right? So like I was saying with the dwarf peach, I like to talk to the tree and say, hello, thank you for always thanking, thank you for the fig, and just make sure and check in on them every day and show my appreciation. So that is pretty much the pruning 101. I'm gonna go up and prune the apple tree and a pear tree, which you guys might say, we have an apple tree and a pear tree. We do. Unfortunately, they are growing under the shade and the leaf fall area of the eucalyptus trees, and eucalyptus trees are notorious for creating inhospitable soil. So when they drop their leaves have a certain chemical in them that makes it really difficult for plants to grow and thrive underneath. So our apple tree is not happy, our pear tree is not happy. So I'm gonna try and trim them back and see what we can do to make them happy. All right, that is pruning. Pruning is just, remember, the trimming back of trees or plants as we move into fall to protect them for the winter and prepare them for a different, sometimes better type of growth for the spring.